The War of the Lawn. How one bird feeder took down a dictator in suburbia. On a warm spring afternoon in suburban Silver Pines, a loaded gun was pointed at my son over a bird feeder. Not drugs, not violence, not even trespassing. A bird feeder. Behind the man with the gun stood Carla Whitmore, clipboard in hand, smug as always, dressed in that HOA-issued polo shirt she wore like a badge of authority. She grinned in that tight, lemon-sucking way that had become her signature. And on that day, in the middle of our front lawn, she made the mistake of thinking she still ran this neighborhood. Silver Pines was supposed to be peaceful. When my husband Dean and I retired, we chose it for its serenical sacks lined with dogwoods, neighbors who waved but didn't intrude, and monthly potlucks that rarely ended in conflict. We bought a tidy little house with a porch swing and a backyard perfect for sipping morning coffee while watching robins and cardinals play in the trees. For a while, it was heaven, until Carla happened. Carla wasn't just the president of the Homeowners Association, she was the HOA. She ran unopposed every year, rewrote the bylaws to suit her needs, and treated her position like a divine appointment from the gods of suburbia. You couldn't plant a tulip without her approval. And woe to anyone who dared to deviate from the approved color palette or fence height ordinance. It didn't take long before people stopped decorating their porches and started watching their backs. At first, we ignored the little things, passive-aggressive notes about our garden gnome, warnings that our mailbox handle was 0.6 inches too shiny. But then came the fines. $75 for a hose not rolled neatly enough. $140 for a non-regulation shade of gray on our shutters. We laughed it off at first, assuming she'd get bored. But boredom wasn't the issue. Then she met Doug. Doug Warner was a part-time sheriff's deputy with a full-time superiority complex. He was Carla's boyfriend, though enforcer might have been a better term. He had a badge, a buzz cut, and a wandering jurisdiction. Before long, Doug started patrolling the neighborhood, knocking on doors under the pretense of code enforcement, casually resting a hand on his holstered weapon like he was auditioning for a role in Lone Ranger, Suburbia Edition. Some neighbors welcomed the attention. Others, like us, began installing locks and cameras. The day our son came home, everything changed. Elias had just returned from his 4th deployment. He was quiet, respectful, the kind of man who calls every woman ma'am, including our cat. He mowed the lawn every Sunday. Didn't drink, didn't party, but Carla didn't like him. Said he looked intimidating. Said his pickup truck was too wide for HOA regulations. Said his American flag was a potential trigger. We ignored her until she brought Doug to our doorstep. That day, Elias was hanging a bird feeder from the old oak in our yard. Just a simple wooden feeder, nothing fancy. Carla marched up the sidewalk like she owned the asphalt, Doug right behind her in mirrored sunglasses and that permanent sneer. "You're in violation of Code 7.9b, Carla said. Unauthorized wildlife attraction devices. Elias turned, birdseed still in his palm. "You serious?" he asked. That's when Doug reached for his holster. He drew the gun, pointed it straight at my son's chest. Broad daylight. No warning. Elias didn't flinch. He didn't even blink, just stared back with the kind of unshakable calm that comes from surviving places no human should be. And then he smiled. Not the kind of smile you give to ease tension. The kind of smile that says you just declared war and picked the wrong opponent. But before we talk about that moment of crescendo, need to go back. Because like every ridiculous suburban tragedy, this one didn't start with violence. It started with lawn ornaments, a tape measure, and one very territorial hummingbird. 2 years earlier, Carla had taken over the HOA presidency without a single vote cast. No one else wanted the job. That was our first mistake. At first, she played the part well. Monthly newsletters, holiday banners, bake sales, and block party flyers. Then the power started to go to her head. The rules changed, then changed again. Overnight, restrictions were added. Bird feeders banned. Garden gnomes limited to non-human likenesses. Trash bins had to be stored behind opaque screens at all times, even on pickup day. Carla printed out citations and stuck them to doors like she was delivering subpoenas. She even fined the clients for having a Halloween skeleton up one day past November 1st. Then Elias came home. His truck, a weathered Ford F-250, parked neatly in our driveway, became Carla's obsession. The tires protrude past the boundary line, she claimed. That constitutes encroachment on common property. Elias, calm as ever, replied, I believe the property line is 3 feet past that curb. She fined us anyway. Then came the surveillance. Carla and Doug began compliance walks armed with clipboards, cameras, and what I swear was a portable leveler. They cited homes for things like excessive curtain patterning and non-harmonious wind chime tones. Doug used his badge to pressure homeowners into compliance. Elias didn't react. Not outwardly. But every night, I saw him at his laptop, studying the HOA's public bylaws, saving screenshots, taking notes. And when he saw how Carla had manipulated proxy votes to make herself president indefinitely, he started preparing. The bird feeder was the turning point. It wasn't just a way to relax. For Elias, it was a piece of HOA connection to the peace he fought so hard to defend. Carla called it a violation. Elias pointed to 3 other homes with feeders. She grinned and said, they're on the list. 3 days later, we got a $300 fine. Elias didn't argue, just said, okay. And that's when I knew something was coming. Then came Operation Pine Straw. After Carla installed HOA-funded cameras aimed directly at our home without a vote, Elias responded by covering our yard with pine straw mulch. Legal, beautiful, and infuriating to Carla. She called it landscaping aggression and held an emergency board meeting, which no one else attended, to outlaw natural mulch without prior approval. Elias appealed. She denied it. He appealed again. She fined us $500. That night, he spread open a manila folder thicker than a legal brief. Almost ready, he said. Turns out Elias wasn't alone. The Johnsons had footage of Carla ripping up their flower beds. The Harts had audio of Doug making lewd comments during a compliance walk. Even dear old Mrs. Lennox Blind in one, I'd kept every fine she ever received. 27 in total. None with legal citations attached. Elias compiled everything. Timestamps, footage, bylaws, financial records. Then he filed a formal complaint with the county's HOA regulatory board. Abuse of authority. Conflict of interest. Civil rights violations. He didn't stop there. The week after Randy pulled the gun, Elias revealed that he'd already filed for a temporary restraining order against Doug, granted just hours before the confrontation. Doug violated that order by stepping onto our property and pointing a weapon. That was felony assault with a deadly weapon. It was all caught on camera. Our doorbell cam, Elias' body camera, and a neighbor's iPhone from across the street. Doug was arrested an hour later right there on our lawn. Carla tried to intervene, yelling, screaming, demanding someone arrest us instead. No one listened. The neighborhood had finally woken up. Turns out Carla had been paying herself a management stipend 3 times the legal amount. Unapproved, unauthorized, illegal. The clipboard hit the pavement and stayed there. A week later, at a public HOA disciplinary hearing moved to the town library to accommodate the crowd, Elias laid it all out. The forged signatures, the fake citations, the misuse of funds, the private surveillance cameras. One man brought his dead garden gnome as Exhibit A. Another held up a sign that said, "Free the feeders." When the panel returned from deliberation, they read the verdict plainly. Carla Whitmore, you are hereby removed from your position on the Silver Pines HOA board, effective immediately. Further investigation will be handled by the district attorney's office. She screamed, I built this neighborhood. Someone shouted back, on lies. Her dog Muffin barked. Okay, maybe I made that last part up, but it felt right. In the weeks that followed, the new HOA board was formed. The community rewrote every bylaw. Bird feeders legalized. Gnomes reinstated. Normal-sized trucks approved. Even flamingos came back, lawn freedom restored. Doug lost his badge. Carla faced fraud charges. And Elias? He declined an offer to join the board. Said he'd rather sip coffee in peace. But there's more. 2 weeks after her removal, Carla filed a $250,000 defamation lawsuit against the entire neighborhood. She claimed loss of future leadership opportunities, emotional distress, and most ridiculously, reputation sabotage. The case made it to court. Elias testified again. Calm. Measured. I didn't fight overseas just to watch someone like Carla Whitmore terrorize a peaceful community with a clipboard and a badge, he said. The court dismissed the case with prejudice. Carla was ordered to pay $18,400 in legal fees. Her bank account was frozen. Her condo lease terminated. Her LinkedIn vanished mysteriously soon after. Silver Pines was finally at peace. Elias now spends his mornings under the oak tree, sipping black coffee, watching finches and blue jays flutter around the bird feeder. Max, our aging retriever, roams freely without fear of citations. The new HOA newsletter is called Welcome Back Sanity, and every now and then, I catch Elias smiling at the feeder. Quietly. Victory doesn't always roar. Sometimes it chirps,